Hey everyone, it's Sandy Peckinpah on this Facebook Live. I'm joining you to talk about an article that I wrote and how to do a rewrite on a very bad day. And so where did I get this information? From my own life, and I'm going to be talking to you about it today because I'm actually really proud of this article that I wrote. And it was really inspired by something that happened to me personally. Stephen, welcome. Eric, welcome. Michelle, oh my goodness, I have lots of people coming on. Shirley, haven't seen you in a while. Helen, old friends, love it, love it, love it. So, whoops, hold on. Let me just turn down the volume there. So anyway, I am joining you here today because I'm going to talk about an article that I just wrote, and the Mission on medium.com just published it, so it's time worthy. And Patricia, so glad. Hugs to you, my friend. So here I am. We're talking about doing a rewrite on a very bad day. And it is 12 prompts to inspire change from the power of your own words. So, Julio, welcome. So we all have bad days, right? We all have bad days. And what happens when we have a bad day? Well, anything can trigger it. It could be an argument. It could be a disagreement with a client. It could be a day without coffee. I mean, let's face it. It can be any of those things. Hey, Lee, welcome. Sending you a big hug. And so when we have those days, we often think that we're the only ones who have bad days. And especially if you look at social media, you think that, oh my gosh, for sure, you're the only person that has a bad day. Unless you have a person who's on a rant and then you think, well, maybe they're having a bad day. But what I'm learning is that bad days can be triggered by leftover stuff in your life. I mean, it's quite frankly, it can be things that trigger feelings from long ago. And so when you have those experiences and those bad days, it might be triggered by memories of something that was really tough in your life, like a divorce or a loss or something financially that struck you. You know, all of us went through a financially tough time during, the downturn in the housing market, and especially realtors. And, we all struggle with those times. Those are the moments that sometimes knock you to your knees. And I had one of those life-changing events, which many of you who are my friends know that I use my own personal loss as a platform to sharing my story so that maybe if something resonates with you, that it's a focus on maybe something in your own life that maybe you could relate to. So many of you have heard me tell the story about losing my son. And I use that as a backdrop for what I'm about to tell you that will inspire you to figure out new ways of handling very bad days. So, and for all of you who just came on, welcome, welcome. I didn't get to say hello to everybody because I can't see it. I need my glasses on Facebook, but then it reflects and it bothers me. So I go back and I read every comment and I welcome every person who has joined us and hope that you will forgive my inability to read all the names that come on. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I can see it better than others. But anyway, so as I was saying, I had one of those life-changing events many years ago when my vibrant, beautiful, healthy 16-year-old son woke up with a fever and literally was gone the next morning. He had bacterial meningitis. It went undiagnosed. The doctor thought it was the flu. And what it turned out to be was the deadliest form of meningitis. And it literally took my son from life to death in 24 hours. And there was nothing that could be done. Well, It was that damn fast. That's what I got to tell you. I didn't expect it. I didn't know how to handle it. It turned my world upside down. And then one day, a friend gave me an empty notebook, and she said, Sandy, just write. Now, at that time, I had written 2 books that were published, and they were children's books, and I had only written fiction up to that point because I had worked with my late husband, David, and we worked on scripts and story development and all of those things. Hey, Mayana, welcome. And so so my whole life was about fiction and storytelling and fairy tales, and I was also an actress. So I studied acting and plays, and most of them based on fiction. And so when she told me to write, the thing that I could relate to was journaling, because I had journaled at different periods of my life, and I learned so much from that process. And especially as a teenager, oh my gosh, I used to write poems about daisies in your hair and picking flowers and, the Beatles. I wrote about all that stuff. Paul McCartney was my first true love. And when after my son died, and my friend gave me this empty notebook, and she said, Sandy, write, just write. I stared at that blank page the next morning for the longest time. I couldn't say the words. I could only put down one sentence. My son died, and my life will never be the same. And that was as far as it got on that first day of writing in my notebook. But then, the next day, I wrote a paragraph. And I can so relate to Will Smith in that movie that he did, Collateral Beauty. I don't know if any of you saw that movie. It was impossible for him to say his deceased daughter's name. And the whole movie, he never said her name until the very end. And I could so relate to that, because I so feared writing those words that my son was gone, that it would somehow make it more real, more devastating, more heartbreaking. Oh, Joanne, welcome. And Cynthia, I've been thinking about you, honey. Praying for you to get well. Karen, oh my gosh, I'm having all these wonderful people join me. Okay, so what we're talking about is doing a rewrite on your very bad day. But what I'm talking about really is ways to rewrite what has happened and to look at it from a different perspective. And I've got 12 prompts for you that will help you understand what I'm trying to say and how you can implement it in your own life. And I promise you, these are really, really helpful. And I just shared that when my son died, a friend gave me a notebook and said, just write. And the hardest thing in the world was writing that first sentence on that first day. My son died, and my life will never be the same. But then the next day, when I could write a paragraph, and each day after that, it was like the words started to erupt. They didn't stop. And my writing became more real. And it was my place to put my tears. It was my place to put my anger. It was a place where I could put my emotions on the page and let it rest. Oh, I can still remember thinking, okay, now I don't have to cry anymore today. Thank you for the hearts. Those are beautiful. Thank you. So you see, the process of writing is a natural demand on the brain, and it awakens the feel-good hormones. It refuels your spirit. And the process is an important step in making peace with your past. And more importantly, and this is what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about planning your future and claiming your future in words. It's more powerful, I promise you, than doing a vision board. When you bring your vision to life in words, and I'm going to tell you how. When you put your story on the page, when you say what has happened, you become the observer and then your mind can rest. The nature of writing opens your mind to form your emotions, to identify your emotions, and then it releases them. And I noticed that every time I wrote in that notebook, that my struggle would calm down and I could face the day. When my son died, and I thought, how can I be a mother to my 3 living children? Writing was the way that I unraveled my emotions. It begins to diffuse the urgency of your tears because you put it on the page. And people say, oh, well, I'm not a writer, but it doesn't matter because this is just for you. And there's no magic secret. You just pick up a pen and you begin with 1 sentence like I did. And you let your pen guide you by using phrases and words and whatever comes to mind. It doesn't even have to make sense. And because when you write things that don't make sense, it triggers your mind into delving deeper and making sense. And as it scratches the surface of that paper, your mind listens and it looks for ways to make sense of what you're struggling with. Now, there's a researcher, James Pennebaker, who is a researcher on the benefits of writing in psychology. And he said, and I'm going to quote this, by writing, you put some structure and organization to those anxious feelings, and it helps you get past them. Hey, I think I just saw Debbie and David and Lisa. Welcome. I'm just sharing what I know and a cappuccino. So it has been proven that writing in a notebook, and you can call it whatever you want, a journal, I think that word is sort of overused, but it sort of describes what it is. It's the miracle of writing. It awakens the subconscious mind and allows a real and powerful connection between your thoughts and reality. Writing daily or weekly provides a framework for you to see, and it's a framework that you can monitor your own resilience. Now, this is all written in an article that I wrote for The Mission on the internet. It's a platform that has many, many articles. I'm really proud of this article because it is my personal story of how I survived. You know, it awakened my thoughts and my desires. Hey, Debbie, so glad to see you. It awakens your thoughts and your desires and awakens your emotions. It uncovers psychological patterns that you don't even know you're experiencing it at the time. And it becomes your living textbook for your healing process or the process of structuring your own life. Now I'm going to talk about how you can attract what you want in this broadcast, because this is what I discovered about writing in a notebook and journaling, is that after a while you see things leaping off the page that you didn't know you were feeling. And not only do you see peace coming from letting your emotions rest on something that happened in the past, because remember, when you're writing about them, they've already happened. And so you give it perspective on how you can handle it in the future. And there's my wonderful Vanessa, whom I love so much. I'm going to see you tomorrow, honey. Thank you. So I was just sharing my story about how important the writing process was in my healing after I lost my son. And a friend handed me a notebook and said, write, just write. And that was the last thing I wanted to do. I was so mad. I was so frustrated. Thank you, my dear. I love you too. It was the hardest emotional time of my whole life, and at times it continues to be. There are no miraculous ways that you can truly not mourn the loss of a child anymore. It doesn't happen. There are times when I can delve deeply back into the morning process, but I know how to give it a time and a space and a beginning and an end. And a lot of it has to do with writing in my journal, to expressing my emotions. And my words rise up off the page and say, rest. Now you get to rest. You've put it in the pages of this book. Now get on with your life. And that is a wonderful feeling. Hey, Britt, welcome. So within the pages, it's your secret place. You get to share the true you. It's your world of words, and you can shape within them your dreams and desires too. You don't just have to write when you're depressed. And believe me, writing was a huge part of my healing after the loss of my son and the other losses that I've experienced in my life. But, oh, thank you, Britt. I appreciate that. But when you share the true you, you have an opportunity to look at you from a different perspective. When you go back and read it, that's your past, right? So what is your present? Your present is what you're going to be writing about also. It's how you're feeling in the moment, and you can also start expressing your wishes for the future. It's like the missing secret ingredient in attracting what you want in life. Bob Proctor, who teaches The Secret behind the law of attraction, he says thoughts which are mixed with feeling or emotion constitute a magnetic force. So to attract what you want, your thoughts must be accompanied by deep feeling and desire. Well, let me tell you, those emotions of deep feeling come up when you're writing in your journal. When you start conveying your heart's desire, it's a vision in your head, and suddenly it gives it energy. When you put, sometimes when you do a vision board with magazine cutouts, it might misfire because it lacks the trigger of your own emotion because you see other people's pictures. Is that your reality? What your reality is in your words and your emotions and your feelings. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. When you try to convey your heart's desires with visions of magazines and other people's visions, it often doesn't strike the match of intention. So if you choose writing, your writing as the tool to boldly put your desires out there, you'll see how quickly they urge you to start taking the next step and the next step and the next step. It's very simple. I said this to one of my children the other day. Honey, you don't have to figure out the whole picture. Just look at the very next step. Maybe that's a phone call. Maybe that's, making an appointment. Just the very next step is all you have to figure out. And then you're putting it out there to be discovered by the energy of the universe. And wow, that's when your ideas come alive. Hey, Lori. I'm so glad to see you. Keep writing. Lori, this is for you too, my dear. Appreciation. Oh, well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. So if you keep writing, you'll discover transformation is inevitable. Inevitable. It's true. I've seen it happen, oh my gosh, so often. I can tell you that I actually had this vision in words in my head when I decided, now my late husband, he died in 2006, and I always thought that we would get remarried because our marriage was one of those great tragedies when you lose a child. And it happens sometimes. That movie, Collateral Beauty with Will Smith, they portrayed that really, really well, what it feels like to lose a child. And that movie was so significant to me because I just kept seeing healing in our relationship, and we were so close. And then suddenly he died, and that happened in 2006. And I thought to myself, I was only meant to have one great love. But I realized I was doing myself a disservice by believing that. And I started to write my vision of my future with someone, with a partner in life. I decided that I didn't want to be alone. I was really good at being married, and I really loved it. I really, really loved it. And I wanted it again in my life. And so I started writing, and I started visualizing what that would look like. And when I did, the doors started to open one step at a time, because I allowed it and I envisioned it. I didn't have to see the whole picture. I just knew what I had to do to take the very next step, and that was turn my green light on, folks. Hey, Vivian, welcome. Annie, welcome. I love all my friends on Facebook. I have the best friends. And so, yeah, guess what? I met my husband on Facebook, but we had actually met in 2016 for the, we had actually met in let's see, I can't even remember what year it was right now, but I was 16 years old and he was 20. Writing is a wonderful expression of your authenticity. Oh my gosh, it's about you. Yes, Debbie, that's so true. It's about you. Writing is about you. It's from your perspective. It's about your perspective in life. No one else is living your life. And so when I started to envision what my life looked like with another person coming into my life as a great love, I recognized, it wasn't my intention to have just one great love in my life, because he was obviously gone, and now I had an opportunity to know what love is with another person. And I was so grateful that we reconnected on Facebook. I had met him in New York when I was 16 and he was 20, as I said, and it was a miracle that we found each other on Facebook, and it was magic. It all came to life because my words had intention, and I put them out there in the universe to have power and the ability to start making my dreams come true. Jill, hey, I'm so glad. Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I just tell my story, Jill, but thank you. I'm so grateful for you. So you'll discover that transformation as it... Oh my gosh, is that Michael Alden? Thank you so much for joining me. Michael Alden is one of my treasured friends. Michael, you're just making me smile so much right now. He did so many things for me, I can't tell you, because for those of you who don't know, I wrote a book called Rosie the Imperfect Angel. That was my first book ever, and it was for my daughter who was born with a birth defect, and I wanted a book that could make a difference in her life and give her an entree into school. And gosh, 20 years later, Michael contacts me and says, I want to do a CD, a recording of Rosie the Imperfect Angel, and Michael wrote the music, he produced it, and Melissa Gilbert did the voice on it, and Marlee Matlin did the liner notes on it, and this whole thing came to life, and Michael even got it to the Grammy ballot in 2009, right, Michael? Oh my gosh. And that is one of the greatest treasures of my life, my friend. You gave me the gift of recognizing that sometimes we don't always know the effect that our words have on other people until 20 years later. And that is a great gift. So thank you. I adore you. And I'm so proud of you. Let me tell you his accomplishments. He has huge Broadway shows and Emmys and Tonys that he probably can't even fit in one room. So there you go. The power of intention. Michael had a vision for himself and he made it happen. So, hey Claire, welcome. Monica, welcome. So I was just about to give you writing prompts to get you started on this beautiful transformational journey of writing your story, making it happen. Believe me, it does if you give it an opportunity. Start today, start tomorrow. Remember, what you write about today is already the past. Tomorrow's the future. You get to wake up to a whole new day and a whole new possibility. So here are some things that you want to leave in your journal for your journal to figure out. Because remember what I said, when you put it in your journal, it lets your emotions rest, right? And so, why are you worried today? Think about that. What feels insurmountable? Leave that on the page. And by the way, these are all in an article that was published of mine on the mission, which I was so thrilled to be incorporated in this, in the mission, because I love their writing platform, and they have a huge readership. So I feel like my work is getting out there in a bigger way. And so if you go on medium.com and type in my name, this article will show up. And you can go there and read all of these writing prompts. And in fact, I actually have a link to it on my wall today because I was kind of excited. So number 3, who or what are you missing today? These are all writing prompts that can get you started writing, because if you are stuck and you don't know what to write, just think about these questions. And as I said, they're already listed. In fact, I'll list these prompts in Livestream with Sandy Peckinpah page, which is right, if you type it into Facebook, I have a group, Livestream with Sandy Peckinpah, and I'll type all these prompts in there and they can help you. Number 4, why does your heart hurt? What hurts? Number 5. Hey, Betsy. Betty, welcome. So glad you're here. We're going over these writing prompts. I hope you have a chance to go back and watch this again, because we got to this point where now I'm giving you the details. So why does your heart hurt? These are writing prompts for you to start writing about. Another one, what step should you take today in order to change your tomorrow? That's huge. What one step can you take today in order to change your tomorrow? Another one, what do you love about your job? We all don't love our jobs to death, you know. Parts of it we love, parts of it we don't. But what do you love about your job? Another prompt, what do you hate about your job? If your job could be made better by just doing one thing, what would that be? What are your wins in this past day, this past week, this past month? Are they more or less than you thought? You know, it can be as simple as today, one of my articles that I had hoped would be on the mission was accepted. Okay, that's a win. And when you start looking at the wins, you can start gathering reasons for you to keep moving in that direction, that you're doing something so right. So consider, what are your wins in this past day, this week, this month, this year? Are they more or less than you thought? That's a huge turning point. Another prompt for you. What are you really good at that you no longer do? Do you miss it? Think about those things. I returned to writing after being gone for decades. I didn't write for a long time, and I knew that I needed to. You might discover something that you really miss in your life that needs to return. Another one, what if your life could be so much better by changing this one thing about yourself? What would it be? Now, by doing this, you're writing a vision for your tomorrow, just tomorrow. What does that look like, and does it feel good? Those writing prompts can help you actually rewrite your very bad day. As I called this article that's on the mission, it's rewriting your very bad day. Well, we all have them. And you know what? It can be anything. It can be an argument, a stupid argument. It can be waking up and finding out there's not enough coffee for a cup. It can be anything. But your journal is a safe place to leave it on the page and start your day revived, excited, looking forward to the very next step. That's all you have to figure out. You know what? Writing restored me. It lifted me out of the depths of despair when I lost my child, and it held me accountable for the next part of my life. I began writing to heal my sorrow, but I discovered something else, and that was there were power in my words. Within my words was the ability to rise up out of that terrible time and see a better future. And I promise you, there isn't one of us that hasn't had a life without tough times or loss or bad days. It's the blending of those experiences that create the narrative of our lives. And it's your story, and it's your life. And you get to choose where you want it to go. So thank you for joining me today. I am so grateful. And if you have a chance, you can visit my website because I have lots of other blogs on there. Can you see that? Yeah. I have lots of other blogs at sandypeckinpah.com. Oh, thank you for the hearts. Thank you, thank you. What do I write about? I write about my story as a backdrop to be able to share what I've learned and what I know and what I love helping people with, and that is discover their own resilience. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for the hearts. I am so blessed. Bye-bye.